buffer time?
Timey-wimey!
What is buffer time? Is what buffer time?
This is the doctor. Is this the buffer time? Damn it! Never mind. I was really enjoying that for a second. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Buffer Time live stream. As you may recall, for the last month or so, we've been comparing Star Trek to other various sci-fi franchises. And tonight, we are discussing one that is near and dear to my heart in particular, and I believe at least half of the people here, Doctor Who. But, before we get into all that, let's go around and introduce ourselves as we do. Despite calling myself, the Doctor, I am in fact Scott from the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About.
I'm Windgrace. I thought we were talking about Dr. No. Oops.
I'm Ren from Ren Rants.
And my name is Vanessa, and I run a YouTube channel called I Love Bad Star Trek.
I'm just a disembodied series of pictures from Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
All right. Well, let's see. First, I believe there is some Star Trek news. Where'd I go? I knew it should have been on the... Wait, what just happened?
Covfefe.
Star Trek coffee. Love the various flavors, which you can kind of see. That's one of me. So, oh wait, the Klingon one, that's Ractigino, isn't it?
Oh man, this makes me wish I drank coffee a little bit, even if it's silly.
Where can we find these?
That is actually an excellent question. I'm not the one that found it. Dustin, do you know?
I'm not sure. I mean, if you search for the coffee, I'm sure you'll find it. I got it through TrekCore.
Oh, okay.
They publish this kind of stuff.
Whoa.
I think you can, I just Googled it. It is on popculturecoffee.com and Star Trek site, which I guess leads to the same place. So
yeah, it's a legit thing. It came through StarTrek.com originally.
Yep.
There was a Star Trek experience at which to drink it.
Oh.
Oh, I want it.
Nice.
Like, I can't imagine a Borg drinking coffee. Like everybody else on here, perhaps.
It's just constantly flowing through their tubules.
Yeah,
This
right.
coffee is specially made for you to assimilate into your various corporate duties.
Right.
I'm definitely going to order some Ractigino and coffee black and see what it's all about.
Do they have the really weird cups that are just like disc bottoms?
Yeah, the other piece, there actually are like the teacups that Picard gets all the time from the replicator. Those are a thing too, but I didn't get
Hell yeah.
those. I'm not super interested. I don't find them all that.
I doubt they're microwave or dishwasher safe though, so be careful.
Man.
Yeah.
What would have been funny is if they did like a Picard Earl Grey tea blend and then like a Locutus coffee blend.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh, nice. That's a good thought.
And one's more of a dark roast.
Yeah. Like sometimes the merch things, with the exception of like Kid Cudi's DS9 thing, merch often seems to take on like characters that are the most well-known. So that's what it sort of rings as to me. Aside from like the Ractigino and the Janeway, like the rest of them are just sort of like, we're just going to come up with a thing on Star Trek and attach a coffee to it and not put much thought to it beyond that. That's just my take.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's valid. The names are really uninspired, especially Borg blend.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Boy,
Get a little creative.
who's going to drink that?
Be curious to see what sells the most. It's got to be Janeway, unless people want the like logos.
Like
They
I,
could've
it,
done
it
something
seems
like
like these would be the kind of things that would be on your shelf versus
Mhm.
something that you would be like, oh my god, I have to drink this.
Yeah, it probably does have more collectible potential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drink that. I'm gonna drink it so hard, and I'm gonna make a video.
Hell yeah.
You can mix and match.
Wrapped up on Trek coffee. Let's make a video.
Have half Borg, half Janeway.
Now Star
Oh,
Trek
that's
can
a
help get
great
you through
thought.
the day in a whole new way.
Hey.
It is only logical.
I'm just mad there's not a Leola root flavor. That's all I
Oh
want.
my god.
Or
Oh.
Cardassian Canar.
Fish coffee.
Disappointing. There are so many there are just so many better things they could have done with it. It's such a fun idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Harry Mudd has like coffee mud.
Oh, perfect.
Mud's mud. Oh my god.
Somebody done up.
I don't know if I want anything connected to that man in my
I want the Wilson Rain action figure, with or without the helmet he used in the short treks.
like his version of the character is the only one I care about. The rest of it, like the sex trafficking, I can just completely use out.
Oh, 100%.
Let's not look into that too much. All right, next here, Dustin, you had the thing about the poll. Yeah, I think we know who our fans, which series our fans prefer.
I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of shocked that it was that much of a gap. Like, I knew Star Trek would win because it's a Star Trek channel, but whoa!
Well, the last 2 weeks, Star Trek has not won. When we put Battlestar
really?
up against, well, I specifically put Battlestar up against, or did I do it? No, we did that as Olive Track. And the week before, it was Quantum Leap versus Just Enterprise. So I can kind of see why people took Quantum Leap over Just Enterprise.
Yeah. I will say, though, excellent choice of thumbnails, but Orla Brady had more to do in one episode of Doctor Who than like 2 seasons of Picard.
I believe it.
What was she? Mother's? Yeah. I'm trying to think, what was she doing? Right. Mother Superius of the Papal Mainframe, but no time for that.
You have a TARDIS. You have all the time in the world.
That is true.
That is true. Yeah. But you may notice it's in the middle of exploding, so.
Is Sutek on yours or not?
All right, on that note, let's get on to the main topic, shall we? Doctor Who. First question we had is Doctor Who actually a sci-fi show? Wait, hold on. What happened to my video? Give me a second.
Uh-oh.
There we go. What you're saying?
I would
Is
call
that
it
one
a
of those
sci-fi
Gary
fantasy
7 servos?
show.
This is the original that man ate. Although I am about 97% sure that he's a Time Lord.
Oh, well, there you go.
But as you're saying, Ren.
I was just gonna say, I think it's more of a sci-fantasy, because it does have sci-fi elements, but I think it would be very, very, very generous to say that, to even say they play it like fast and loose with the science. Like a lot of the time, the like big mystery reveal is feelings, which is great. I love it, but it doesn't read as sci-fi to me.
Yeah, it definitely has that feeling, or like sci fairy tale sometimes too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Although, as a good wise woman once said, I hate wizards and fairy tales. They always turn out to be him.
Like if we're going off the strictly dictionary definition, which is fiction based on imagined future scientific or technological advances and major social or environmental changes, frequently portraying space or time travel and life on other planets. Like it picks and chooses from that definition a lot. You think of the Time War, you think of like where the Time Lord or when the Time Lords are from, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But like there's a lot of, I think it's crucial that it's actually rooted in the present, that the companions are rooted in the present to sort of make it more believable. It's sort of like, yeah, like Ren said, sci fantasy, I would say.
That's fair. It's definitely taken a pretty good sized step away from what it started out to be, which was with elements of science fiction, you know, with the time travel and space travel and so on, but mostly look into history.
Yeah,
it's
it was
supposed to be, like,
originally an
somewhat
educational show for kids.
Mhm.
It does what it wants to do. It doesn't let logic get in the way of a good story.
Oh, that's so true.
It definitely doesn't.
Like there's recurring elements and everything. And there's sort of an apocalyptic overtone that's meant to be over the horizon of time, like with the Daleks and the
Right.
Cybermen and things like that. So, like, but
And
that's
like
sort of
also-
inevitable. There's no, like, it's not like Star Trek where it's like, oh, let's go ahead and go into the past and change something so that doesn't happen or something like that. That's inevitable. So it's like it picks and chooses what's static and what's elastic. And it's also incredibly episodic. You know, you compare it to Star Trek where all of it's set in the future. All of it is like looking towards a future where everything's more hopeful. Unlike a lot of sci-fi, this is saying, well, apocalypse is inevitable. Let's make the best of it until then, I guess.
That is fair. I mean, one of the earliest episodes of New Who, they traveled to the literal end of the Earth, 5 billion and something in the future, and their Earth was finally blowing up.
That's also the episode where we get our first canonically transgender character.
Is it Cassandra?
It is Cassandra.
Oh, yeah, Cassandra.
Because she says, when I was a little boy, blah,
That's
blah,
right.
blah, 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 in that episode.
Moisturize me.
Moisturize me.
Oh, I have a spray bottle too. It's just too far away.
But yeah, that always drives me crazy when people who are fans of like New Who up to a point are like, where did all this gay stuff come from? And it's like, you were just not paying attention, buddy. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's literally been in the text the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Super straight Captain Jack, though. I mean, they totally changed him.
Oh yeah, mad hetero there.
Also, like, in a sense, the Time Lord technically can be any gender or no gender, you know? So, like, when it regenerates, it's just because of small-minded people that it's cast as a white guy over and over and over again until fairly recently. So,
Well, they can't be ginger, but anything
Oh my
else.
god. I did a video about like the kind of like the history of Doctor Who and like its queer origins and vibes. And like one of the things that drives me absolutely batty is that it makes so much more sense for the Doctor to like change genders, change skin colors, totally change appearance. It makes way less sense that you reincarnate into a brand new, completely different body, but it is always a white man, like 100% of the time. That doesn't make any sense. It also just undermines the purpose of regenerating. Yeah.
Almost always with blue eyes. In fact, until Tennant came along. And there's supposed to be like a nod to that in the lore that like he had blue eyes, even though Gallifreyans have brown eyes because his mother was human.
Oh.
But they don't touch on that very often. All right. Well. Let's see. What makes Doctor Who worth watching as a franchise?
It's really optimistic. And I think especially when the Doctor is portrayed by a man, it actually tends to be a great example of like wholesome masculinity. The Doctor doesn't like guns. When he's not written by Stephen Moffat, he's usually incredibly like empathetic and listens to women. Like he's he tends to be open about his feelings and like have all of these really big feelings, and it just moves you. It's so good.
It's really good at balancing tones, at least some of the time. Like you could have horror and just the most whimsical thing ever, then a slice of life, all in the same season. And it's just good at change. So if there's not something you like a lot. Wait around a few episodes, and it's probably going to be blown out the window anyways.
It's what the half human is only mentioned once in the mid '90s movie. Many believe it's been dropped from canon.
Yes.
I admit I did not watch the 90s movie.
It's an experience.
I haven't seen it since
I think like it's
2012.
there's like Windgrace mentioned. Every episode is wildly different from the last. Like there is a continuity, there is a through line, there is a lore, there is a world building going on, but that can take a big backseat to whimsy or fun monster for the week or the weeping angels or something like that. Like there's always something around the corner that's wildly different from the last, and the stakes are always very different in scale from episode to episode. So if there's like you said, if there's not something you like here, there's probably going to be something cool next week.
Yeah,
I
that is a
actually think-
departure.
I was just going to say, I think that's actually probably the biggest commonality that it has with Star Trek in terms of being both episodic and constantly straddling the lines between genres. But it works so well for making the show like really dynamic and enjoyable, so it doesn't feel like samey if you want to sit down and binge it.
And it's been on for about as long, I guess longer than Star Trek.
I think it was like 3 years earlier than Star Trek.
It premiered on British TV the day after JFK was assassinated.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And they've changed up the structure since then, because you're talking about how, if you don't like this in an episode, just wait for the next one. Like classic Who, all those storylines, those were serialized. Like a whole storyline could take 3, 4, 5 episodes, and they were putting them out once a week. So yeah, they departed from that and they abandoned it for, more of a monster of the week format. Like when I first started watching, I thought this is really an interesting mix of sci-fi and horror of all things.
Well, that's part of the whole baked-in changiness of it. Or I guess it didn't really happen until Hartnell had to leave, but
That's right.
it just changes all the time. Format, characters, everything. It can be whatever it wants to be.
Honestly, that was the most brilliant solution to your main actor leaving if you want to continue a show. And I do love how it was kind of like just an incidental decision where they're like, okay, we want to keep doing this, but we need a new guy. We need a reason for the new guy. And now it's such a defining characteristic of the show and the lore in general. Like, it's so unique and interesting.
And I love when you see the regeneration happen. Like David Tennant looked scared. He looked terrified. I don't want to go, is what he said. Was like the last thing he said. And it's a very emotional thing. And I think it gives the audience that closure, that sort of like, it's not just this random new person popping out of nowhere. There's like a reason for it.
Except in a more recent episode when it literally was. But yeah.
Listen. they explained it kind of, okay?
Yeah, I liked that a lot better than Matt Smith regenerating into Peter Capaldi, because it had this huge build up to it, and then it was just like he sneezed. It was premature regeneration.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of had the worst regeneration sequence of like modern Who, arguably.
Norman, Moffat made children scared of everything. But yes,
including Moffat.
Dustin, I noticed you haven't put up a picture of the Weeping Angels, and please don't, because, lore and all that.
Stephen Moffat's so interesting as a writer because when he was writing just episodes of Doctor Who, like his episodes were like really good. But then as soon as he like got control, he just kind of ran it right into the ground. And I feel like he did the same thing like with Sherlock, with just going out of control. I feel like he's a great writer if you only allow him to do one episode and you supervise him very, very carefully and have someone like go back and edit for latent misogyny. Like
that's Star Trek too, with a lot of the writers on there.
That was basically a way to deal with Rick Berman.
That's why DS9 turned out so well, because there was like a constant back and forth between, pushing it too far and keeping it consistent.
Okay, so let's hope that's not the biggest similarity between Doctor Who and Star Trek. What do you guys think is? Oh, that's right. I'll segue like crazy.
I think the genre straddling, the generally optimistic tone, and the more like episodic format are probably the things that stick out the most to me.
I think it has like a similarity in tone to TNG, where you have like a sort of like moral story of the week, sort of baked into these episodes. But like modern Trek is a lot less cohesive that way. So I think it has more in common with like older Trek. Personally, that's my read.
That's fair.
They do both love a political or did love a political allegory, though. Although at least New Who is kind of like continuing that train from time to time.
Speeches, especially I guess if you're thinking of like Picard era,
Monologue.
you just resolve something with a nice speech.
Like Rings of Akhenaten, the Matt Smith one is really good. David Tennant's, it's something about Satan's pit. Like
Okay.
something was being thrown into or out of a black hole at that point. Like he draws on a lot of sort of knowledge that only he has, because it's the Doctor and there's just so much like pain inside of him, you know, and so much things that he can't even talk about. There's no words for it. So the speeches come from like a vast pool of emotion.
That's true.
But neither the Doctor nor Picard were interested. Anything can happen.
Right. There's a very specific scene.
Jackie.
I don't know, I got way more specific with it though, like how, you know, the like how the Cybermen are they're just the Borg, just more shiny.
They are. They kind of are.
Are Cybermen like formerly human people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they take your brain and all your bits and they put it in a giant metal suit, and you're like
a supposedly indestructible metal suit, but it has its weaknesses.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Oh, you're not going to show the Cyber Woman?
Wasn't there a whole plot point where he made them self-aware and they were all like,
Because I wonder how stretched out the similarity goes. Like, is there sort of like de-assimilated Cybermen somewhere in the Who lore?
Kind of, yes. Because at a certain point, they didn't just take your brain out; they just kind of put you in the suit. Because there have been times when, who was it? Clara's boyfriend Danny, like his thing opened up and there's his face because he's dead. And figured out how to weaponize the dead at that point and turn them into Cybermen.
I wonder if they inspired each other. You know, maybe the Borg was inspired by the Cybermen.
I think so, because this picture... I think
the Cybermen definitely predates it. Oh, sorry, you were about to say that.
Yeah, this picture, if I've got it right, the first appearance of the Cybermen, I am such a nerd, was at the very end of the first series in 63, and I believe it was these Cybermen, because they were from Mondas, which they were calling the 10th planet in our solar system, but we never see it because it's directly across from us from the sun. And they had decided to upgrade themselves, and that's how you get these things.
I gotta say, Doctor Who, I really love that they tend to be way more consistent about their 60s designs canonically remaining like very similar, even in modern iterations. Like, the Cybermen now look a lot like the Cybermen then, the Daleks now look a lot like the Daleks then, and I kind of just appreciate that, because most other shows like really, really modernize their designs, and I just appreciate that they're like, nope, this is what it looks like, and we're sticking to it.
Yeah, really, the only difference between this and like modern day Daleks is color.
Yeah.
They still got a plunger for one arm and they got a whisk for the other.
Yeah, they even made it scary in the new one. They plunged a guy's head off.
I also like the consistency with the theme song in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
It's great.
Faith of the TARDIS, right?
Fun fact: the sound of the TARDIS materializing and dematerializing. Anybody else know what that is?
I can't remember, but I know I've read this somewhere.
So like a key or something?
House key scraping on piano wire.
Oh.
Amazing.
And that became iconic. It's freaking brilliant.
It's because he forgot to take the parking brake off.
Yes.
Wasn't it one of the first shows to use like a synthesizer for their music too? I want to say yes.
Yeah, probably. I believe that. Okay, so we've discussed similarities. How about the biggest difference between the two? And yes, we know it's British.
It's not. I mean, so the Doctor obviously always has companions, but it's still not as much of an ensemble show as Star Trek in terms of like everything tends to come back to the Doctor, and the Doctor is kind of just a lot more central than any one individual Trek character usually is.
It's true. There are
sorry.
There are like random episodes where the Doctor doesn't really feature, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're really not. Anyway.
The status quo in Star Trek has to be come back to a little bit more solidly, I guess, whereas Doctor Who can break the entire universe time and time again, and then things don't have to be put back exactly the same way because they're not always coming back to like the 25th century or whatever they're doing.
Right.
And even if they do, they're like, oh, things are different, but close enough.
Like, yeah, Doctor Who's not bound by any sort of law of physics, time, space, anything, to the extent that if this person appeared in Star Trek, even if there are like non-corporeal beings and the Q and stuff, like this would be an overpowered character in anywhere else. But it works here because that's just the main thrust of the show is the adventures of this guy and the crew and stuff. Like Q is like a quirky character that shows up, but Doctor Who's the main person. And it's mainly the emotional main push of the show centers around the Doctor. Whereas like in Star Trek, it can center around any number of people. The only series that gets anywhere close to having like a main character is Discovery. But you could argue that like some episodes have nothing to do with Michael Burnham whatsoever. So
I really need a crossover with the Doctor and Q now. Like that's what I want. If we ever get a crossover, I just need the Doctor and Q to like fuck with each other because I think it would be so funny.
Just
I want to
Dr.
say
Q?
the comic.
Yes.
I really want to say the comics, but I can't remember because there is a Doctor Who Next Generation crossover. I have the issue somewhere in this house.
I don't know if Q was there. I know Q met the Watcher from Marvel in the Marvel crossover. I don't know if Q met Doctor Who.
But yeah, I think they'd be really fun. I want it. I need it now.
And another thing that sort of pushes Doctor Who into fantasy is that Doctor Who is like the sole vice regent guardian of Earth in all timelines. That's not really the case.
Literally like the president of Earth or something.
Yeah, it's just that he's the guardian. He's the person, the savior of humanity alone. And that would never that's just so the opposite of what Star Trek is.
Well, be fair, all the other Time Lords are dead. He killed them. With a couple of major exceptions.
Well, if it isn't the consequences of your own actions, Doctor.
Heavy is the head,
Heavy is the head that wears the fez.
Oh, good one.
That's a good shirt.
Sad are the eyes that have looked into the time vortex.
Thank you.
Wait, what is that?
No, it's just from the I want to say the Bakshi Lord of the Rings, the old animated one
Okay.
with the like rotoscoping.
Like the also like time travel is done with the specific goal in mind of either preserving the timeline or changing it irrevocably. Whereas in Star Trek, it's like, don't touch anything, don't talk to anybody, you know, get in,
Don't you
get
fuck
out.
this
Like,
up.
yeah. And interdimensional stuff is really not typical either. Like that there's like some spooky episodes that kind of go in that direction, but for the most part, like that one where Geordi and Ro are sort of like stuck in a pocket dimension and can't like get in contact with anybody else except as like
So good.
or whatever. Like there's some things like that. Why cat's paw? Why? Why are yeah, there's like that one was a little odd in that regard. But for the most part, like interdimensional travel doesn't it's not really a thing.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's a throwaway line at one point, like, "Oh, since the Time Lords are dead, it's really harder to travel to other dimensions."
Oh, I think that's when they go to Pete's world.
Yeah,
Or I think, yeah.
and find upgraded Cybermen.
Or intergalactic travel for that matter. Like those travel from star system to star system within the galaxy, but
Mhm.
not from galaxy to galaxy.
Yeah.
And
Meanwhile, the TARDIS can just accidentally get lost on the very edge of the universe.
Mhm.
right, or just outside the universe.
Or just before the universe.
Or just after the
Right. Like you might, yes, that episode where they're sort of like
What
seeing
is that
bubbles
point?
and stuff where they're like, oh shit, we went too far. Oh shit, we went even further. Oh shit.
Right? But yeah, then you have the Traveler who kind of has the same idea. Because if you talked to the Doctor about it, he would probably be totally down with the idea of uniting time and space and thought.
Has everyone here seen Prodigy season 2?
I haven't finished it yet.
Oh.
Okay. So there's a character in that they distinctly created not created, changed into trying to be their own version of the Doctor. That was kind of the inspiration behind the scene, what they were doing with this character. But I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Now I'm extra excited. I need to jump back on that wagon.
I'm not spoil it either, but he kind of has his own analog in Doctor
Right.
Who, Classic Who anyway.
Like the person that gets the closest to being a Time Lord is Wesley.
Yes.
That's the closest we get to anything like that. Some
Or
like
Gary Seven. I guess.
timeline thing.
Yeah, Gary Seven. I'm so convinced Gary Seven is a Time Lord. Where were we? What is the best thing about Doctor Who?
That's hard.
I know. Excellent choice of intro.
Ooh.
I guess the feelings. It's a show with such big feelings. And I don't know, there's something so like vulnerable about the Doctor, even when he's like grumpy or when she's like it's just such a good character. And I think the way the Doctor regenerates into new bodies is just so compelling, and the companions are great. Like, I don't know, I can't pick. You guys try.
There's in most episodes, unless it's like an offshoot or something, there's a feeling of accomplishment or like overcoming an obstacle at the end of almost everything. Whereas Star Trek does that a lot too, but not every single episode is like, we came out on top despite all these weird odds that there's no possible way we're going to succeed. But I talked this guy down.
Yeah, and I'm never left at the end of an episode, no matter how big the stakes are, thinking that solution did not make sense. What are you doing? And it could be the craziest damn thing. I mean, the Doctor has saved the universe, saved reality itself, stopped time from dying, And I was just never like, no, this isn't plausible. Because it just makes perfect sense from the way the story in the show goes.
Also, the problems that they face, this is another similarity to Star Trek, but I also think it works in Doctor Who's favor, is that the problems that the crew faces of the TARDIS often reflect their own personal struggles. And it's like overcoming their own personal struggles in conjunction with the obstacle in the episode. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it feels very satisfying that way, because it's not just like beating a bad guy, because that's just hollow. There's an emotional arc that is traversed throughout the episode.
I also love oh my god, that the TARDIS like is alive and has feelings, and will often just decide where the Doctor needs to go. Like, the Doctor doesn't always get to decide where to go. Sometimes the TARDIS just sends them somewhere.
You don't always take me where I want to go. No, but I've always brought you where you needed to be.
And also, I didn't tell you that I had an Egyptian god sitting on me for 50 years. But
right. And we won't see a picture of that because I forgot to tell Dustin about Idris.
I also like that each Doctor has like a different sort of emotional world that, and they process the Doctor's past very differently. Peter Capaldi is not the most empathetic, not the most kind, and even Matt Smith. And I think this kind of happens with newer Doctors when they're just starting. Is like, ooh, it's a bit of it's a rough transition to be a human being and have all these thoughts knocking around in your head. So, and the relationship with the companion's different. Like Amy Pond and Clara, wildly different people, you know.
Well, yeah, Amy wound up being his mother-in-law.
Right.
Where did you get a picture of Adric, Dustin? He's the Wesley counterpart, the annoying ass boy genius. He died, and I didn't feel that bad about it.
You said something about artists, and I searched, and this is what I got back. So I'm just putting up what Google tells me is the first fucking thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did actually mean Idris, which was the name of a human woman who, what's a good way to put this? The sentient matrix of the TARDIS was forced to assume human form. So he finally
the Doctor was like weirdly horny for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a Neil Gaiman story.
No, Neil Gaiman wrote that one, which now also makes sense.
Oh, loved it.
Also, like, from my understanding, the Doctor's largely asexual. So I don't know if like that's a deliberate decision, but I think it turns the focus of the show away from being strictly a romantic thing. And I think it's so easy for TV shows to sort of like go into that lane and never come out. Will they, won't they is a really boring ass thing, especially for like 60 years.
It does vary from regeneration to regeneration, though. I mean, Tennant was absolutely in love with Rose, even though he didn't get to say it. Matt Smith got married. And
Matt Smith is also like obviously horny for like half of the women he ran into. Like, it was ridiculous. The original writers from like Classic Who didn't even want the Doctor to like hug the companion, so that there would be absolutely no like assumptions of hanky-panky happening in the TARDIS like whatsoever. Like, they really wanted to keep the Doctor as like totally asexual, not interested in his companions. Like, I think in the original run of the show, the like closest he gets to like a romance is like sentimentally gazing at a ring after an accidental engagement where they don't even kiss or anything. Like, it is kind of wild how in the newer version of this show they're like, well, we need the Doctor to be sexy.
Or at least he's not like, or she is not so relationship focused that it disrupts the flow of the show in a way where it's like that's just what it's about. It's only in service of the plot, not like, oh well, this is just what the plot is.
We were on a break.
My favorite dynamic was the Doctor and Donna. Like,
Mm.
so good. So good. So wholesome, so funny. Like, they just played off each other so well, and just the complete, total, absolute lack of any sexual or romantic chemistry between them was great. It was so good.
And I think part of that is because up until then, it had kind of seemed like all of his companions, and I might actually count Mickey among that, would have jumped in bed with him if given the chance. Tennant apparently just gave off that vibe. Rose was after him. I think
He seemed
Jack
to have a
was
little
on
crush,
for it.
didn't he?
Oh yeah, Jack. Except
My
Adam.
favorite is Clara because she was like able to actually drive the TARDIS. And like was almost at like an equal to the Doctor, which I thought was really important.
I really liked Clara. I do wish that, like, I didn't love the ending they gave her, and like especially during the early season with Capaldi, I really hated how much they wrote him like commenting on her body and appearance. Like, that was really fucking weird.
Even Matt Smith did it. That was for Clara, right? End of Matt Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. They like made it more neggy with Capaldi, but like, yeah.
Yeah, but her first appearance as Oswald.
Fantastic.
I want a souffle.
Yeah, you say so. That sequence where they showed her being converted into a Dalek nearly cured me of my ability to sleep at night.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Chilly as shit. I forgot what I was going to say. Anyone else?
I forgot what question we were on.
I also forgot.
Oh, I also really like the redesign of the TARDIS from Doctor to Doctor. Like, it all reflects the Doctor's personality too. So it's like it's not just a regeneration of a Doctor. There's a brand new TARDIS. So it's like it definitively says this is a new thing.
Unless you're Tennant, where the first time around, where literally everything is recycled from Eccleston, including his opening sequence. The blue box. Some things about this box. Okay, so we rambled on a bit about the best things about Doctor Who. What's the worst thing?
Okay, so sometimes the writers just get way too into how important the Doctor is.
No way.
Like just so many just like awe-filled speeches from side characters, and so many like I do love a Doctor speech, but some of them are just very self-important, and they do go on for a while. And I do think it can be a little bit insufferable sometimes when everything always comes back to how powerful and special and old the Doctor is. Like, it feels a little over the top. Also, just the degree of complete insanity with which the lore has kind of just spun off. Like, if you try to make a timeline, a clear timeline of the lore, like, good luck. Good luck, buddy.
Don't do that if you value your own sanity. Are you kidding?
I would say the sexism. I think most of the companions being women is by design, is sort of like being an emotional anchor for the logical Doctor who never acts on emotions or impulses or anything. You know, it's like, yeah, I think that typecasting is kind of a bummer, but I think they're doing things to correct that, which is great.
That's true, but then they did still have Ace.
Love Ace.
She's back again, sort of.
She is working at Unit.
Everyone's working for Unit. Literally anyone.
I just want them to canonically admit she's bisexual. There were plans to write that into her character, but then the show got canceled, so they were like, well, okay. And then there was like plenty of hinting at it. There was one episode with like very explicit like lesbian subtext that the writer who wrote it said, yeah, that was supposed to be gay. And I just want it. I want it. Give me bisexual Ace. We deserve it as a little treat.
Was it
Okay,
ever in
Marley,
the expanded like audio stuff at all?
I think so, yeah.
Big finish, yes.
Okay.
But I want it now in the show. Give it
Drop
to
everything and film it
Okay.
now.
It's a
me. Give
nice
it to me,
thought.
BBC.
It is a nice thought, but Ace did one thing, and even the actress that played her, Sophie Allred, said this is going to follow her to her grave. So it's going to be written on her tombstone. She killed a Dalek with a baseball bat. I saw that.
Truly an
episode.
icon.
But yeah, Norman just said a whole thing like about Chris Chibnall as a showrunner and how the whole thing with the Flux was a mess. And yeah, exactly.
Jodie deserves better.
I
Yeah,
mean,
this
wasn't
means
that was also part COVID too, right? It was like a whole mess of things coming together at the same time. Because didn't they have to film it like separately, sort of too, and cobble it together? Or was that the
Probably.
season before?
Well, it makes sense because it was definitely cobbled.
I don't remember, and a lot of that got so messed up that I don't really remember how to make sense of it, except
I don't
for
remember anything about the Flux. I remember it existed.
I mean, like
I
half the
remember-
universe is dead and they never fixed it.
yeah, half the universe just doesn't exist anymore because space and time had a fight, and along the way, the Earth was saved by a race of dog people.
I
Oh,
really,
yes.
I
Right.
wonder, like, where's Einstein's theory around that? Where is it?
Well, Einstein's been
Doctor
on the
screwed it
show.
away with him at some point.
Einstein was a companion for a little, right? Or was that just like the comics? I don't remember. I thought he jumped aboard for an episode or two because someone was trying to kill him to erase him from time. The Master, I thought, tried to kill him.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He was like, no relativity, no.
No. Well, that's the other thing. We can change history in Doctor Who, like real actual history. Gravity doesn't exist anymore. It's Mavity.
Mavity.
Mavity, yes.
It's so silly. I do love Doctor Who's silly streak. I feel like it sometimes manages to out silly Star Trek, which is quite impressive.
That takes some work, yeah.
Like, I just really want to know what fish sticks and custard tastes like. Never had it.
I mean, you can find out.
Fans
I-
did try it, and it sounds like it is exactly as bad as you'd expect.
Like, how do you throw bread and butter out the front door? Like, how do you be so offended by a food thing that you just like throw it like a frisbee?
No time,
Half is
just like-
bad.
How do you choke down? How do you like spit out bacon? Like, that's so wrong.
And new taste buds gotta
Yes,
gotta
yes.
break them in with fish fingers and custard, baby. Ugh. Okay, one thing I'm
Nah,
really
really
mad
cold.
about in the Matt Smith seasons, I'm actually really, really pissed we didn't get to have like episodes with him traveling around with Amy as a little girl. I think that would have been so cute. I think that would have been such a refreshing break after the whole like Rose and then Martha and then Donna thing to have just like a little kid experiencing the wonder of traveling through space and time. Also, it would have raised the stakes immensely for any like peril for the child because it's a little kid.
Well, they tried adding little kids later. Was it Nightmare in
what's that?
Silver?
Oh,
Or
wow.
the second Neil Gaiman episode with Clara and
Oh,
like 40
yeah.
kids or something at a theme
There's like
park.
a nanny to these kids, and oh, we're gonna take them to this huge amusement park that's
Little
all
baby,
abandoned.
it's great.
An upgraded Cybermen.
But I think, yeah, that would have been, assuming they pulled it off right. She's great. She's like older than original Amy now, which is mind-boggling. But
Oh, that is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Wild how children do that. But yeah, I just think it would be fun, like to have the Doctor kind of run around with a little kid. I just think it'd be cute. Or like have their only companion be like a really old person. That would also be fun.
Well, like with the woman doctor, they had like a, older gentleman,
Yep.
Yeah.
people which was
But they
nice.
still had youngies to balance it out. I
Yes.
want
Will.
just an old one as the companion.
One of whom
Ideally,
wasn't
a
he kind of
cranky
like
old
Windgrace?
lady who like pokes at aliens with like her knitting needles. I just want it.
Unimpressed by anything.
Why is it always a beautiful, like 9 times out of 10, it's always a beautiful
Fair.
woman like the doctor runs off with.
That's entirely fair. That's entirely fair. I agree.
Let's not forget Nardle. Everyone forgets
We
Nardle.
do love Nardle.
Nardle.
We do love Bill Potts.
Nardle
I
is
know
a
Bill
villain.
Potts is still a woman, but it was a nice change of pace to have a lesbian. I am still furious about her ending, though. Like, that's bullshit.
It's a funny little juxtaposition when they found the missing Ninth Legion, and the guy's chiding her for being so closed-minded because they're all bisexual,
Huh?
That was great.
right?
Rory, who just got erased from the timeline 3 episodes in, and then died 5 or 6 more times.
Oh my god, Rory's the Harry Kim of Doctor Who. Just a good lad who was like too pure for this show, but dies again and again.
Dies and doesn't exist. He's made of plastic.
Oh, we should have more alien companions. That would be so cool.
They've got the budget for it now. There was a time in the comics when one of his companions was a shapeshifter who preferred the form of a penguin. Why not?
Hmm.
I need to read the comics. They seem so zany.
I'm going to jump slightly off topic here because why not at this point? Favorite episode, anybody?
Say what?
Hello?
Favorite episode, anybody?
Why are you
Yeah,
doing this to
Hard,
me?
isn't it?
Until recently it was Blink, but I think now it might be Rogue.
Oh, those are damn good.
Heaven Sent.
You're dead.
Mm.
Oh,
With Capaldi in the labyrinth.
That one's really good.
very tiny bird.
I mean, there's just so many. I guess if I'm picking from the new ones, I really liked 73 Yards, even though a lot of people were
That
hit
one
or
was
miss
so
on it.
good.
Just because it was so, I don't want to say new, but it was so different from a lot of the stuff they'd done. I liked it, but again, it's not a typical episode, so I don't know if I could count it as a good example of Doctor Who.
I don't. No, in my case, so I run it all the way back to the Shakespeare Code.
Okay.
All right.
It's just, I'm an avid reader, have been forever. So when you have these aliens that can use words the same way we use numbers to with mathematical equations to split the atom and stuff, and they're using words to do the same thing, like opening interdimensional portals. Like that really appealed to me. And then just from the ending just keeps getting better. Like Shakespeare comes up with a soliloquy on the spot to banish aliens. Right at the end of it, he quotes J.K. Rowling, which was okay at the time.
Well, that was supposed to be a
Alas.
full Harry Potter episode originally.
Really?
I think they were going to have it be J.K. and they were going to create the Harry Potter characters in the story, imaginationally, or that's not a word, but it is now. But I guess it fell through, or they didn't get the rights or something, and then that's why they had that one little statement about her at the end, so the expecto patronum thing. Yeah. Just like they were also planning a crossover with Enterprise when that got canceled. So who
I
knows
feel like
what
there was
world we could be
another
living in.
episode that references Harry Potter somewhere in there too. Now it bums me out anytime anything references it. I'm just like, why?
Mhm.
Why? Even if it was in the past and they couldn't possibly have known, I'm just like, why?
Right.
Oh, yeah,
That
turn
episode-
left. Oh, midnight? Yeah,
Oh.
I'm reading Norman's comments.
Father's Day was also really good.
True.
Yeah, Midnight is amazing. I
Yeah.
rewatched that one.
I
pretty
still think
recently.
Midnight is connected to the edge of the universe being things.
Dude, that's kind of what. Yeah. Oh wait, I think you commented that on my video, and then I was like, oh, that's a good theory. But yeah, they do have very similar mysterious vibes.
But I'm actually glad they don't have a full concrete explanation yet, because that's part of the fun, the mystery, the what's going on here.
Yeah, the fact that that midnight ends and you never know for sure what it is just
Yeah.
so good. Poor traumatized doctor going back to Donna. That was also one of the other like really early episodes that had like gender inclusivity in it, because like the flight attendant, I think her greeting was like, "Ladies and gentlemen," and variations thereupon.
Yes.
Love Doctor Who. Where did all this gay come from?
It was always there, man.
It just popped in around 2016. Never existed before.
Never before.
Nope. Oh, wow. Okay, where were we? Which series better handles interpersonal relationships? You know, I came up with this question. I can't even tell you why.
That's a good question, though.
I was just looking for something.
I think it really depends, but I think because the show is so doctor focused, we get into his emotional world a bit more than we do cast members of Star Trek. So it really depends, because there's some, like I said, Heaven Sent, that sort of grief for a companion is not something that just takes, it's just one episode and boom, even though that was sort of the gist of it. But like, I think the pain takes a bit, they give it a little bit more room to breathe. Like with TNG, after Picard got de-assimilated, it was just like, well, they gave him one episode and he wrestled with his brother in the mud and he was fine, basically, you know? So it really depends. But I honestly, like, I'm leaning towards Who in terms of like relationships and the emotions there around them a little bit.
I think that's valid. Like in Doctor Who, I feel like with each version of the Doctor, we spend basically all of their seasons like unpacking why this Doctor like feels this way, and then like working on the Doctor, like processing that through the interactions with like the companions and side characters and everything. I feel like in Star Trek, it's a lot more like, yeah, limited and episodic, and then characters are more likely to just like rationally talk about things without having those big emotional reactions to things really in the first place nearly as much. Like I feel like the characters are, for the most part, unless there's like an alien influence or something wacky happening, on a much more like even keel. And I think also just like the Berman of it all, where they just and the Roddenberry of it all, where they tried to like avoid interpersonal conflicts in the writing, and so they kind of take a back seat to like whatever's happening with the plot.
That's
So I think you don't
that's
get into
like
the meat as much.
why DS9 I think stands out, because they're sort of stuck in place, and so they have to face each other and they have to work out their shit.
Right.
And you see Garrick unpacking his trauma and his anger towards himself and towards the station because he can't go back to Cardassia, and his loyalty is there, and you see this like seething hatred underneath all that politeness that like springs out occasionally. You see Quark's processing his rejection from his culture, and it's much more character focused. So I think if we're taking just DS9 by itself, I think that is much more like interpersonally focused than most of Star Trek. But compared to Doctor Who, covers that much more in depth over more of their show. Yeah.
That's a good point, because originally I was thinking Trek, just because you have a larger group of characters in constant interaction with each other. But outside of DS9 and maybe some newer stuff, they're all mostly coming from a Starfleet they all were funneled through that training program. They all kind of have the same ethics and beliefs to a certain point. They're all trained to react in a certain way with their emotional responses, duty first, all of that stuff. Whereas Doctor Who is, you've got the Doctor who is what and whoever this character is this week, this iteration, interacting with anything from anywhere at any point, which could have any sort of emotional arc of their own going on. So it's a lot more varied, and you're encountering a lot more things from different angles than in Star Trek. You're always probably outside of DS9 looking at it from a Starfleet perspective.
I think Picard tried to like create that by saying like, oh, I have an issue with my wife. Like Riker in the third season was like, I have an issue with my wife, and like Picard, it has like a son, and they tried to like jam it in there, like forcing what is Geordi and Data.
Geordi. Oh, Geordi.
Like the conflicts in TNG, they pretty much squashed it within one conversation.
Yeah. Unless it was the subject of the specific episode, and even then, like, there was never yelling really.
I mean, you had Riker with his dad, like trying to work through that. But again, he defaulted to like a professional demeanor where he was just like cold and just, you know, get on with the day.
I've been doing a rewatch of TNG, and my new, like, I do love Riker for being a consent king and everything, but I gotta say, I am reminded to why I like disliked him when I was younger, because like anytime his authority is challenged, especially by a woman, he gets so bitchy about it. Like so sassy. Like it's not just Ro, it happens like multiple times. Like it happened in Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2. Like every time. Like
yeah, he's got an ego on him.
Yeah. To be fair, Sylvie wasn't just challenging his authority. She was coming for his job.
She thought he didn't want it anymore.
Well, he was standing in her way. He wasn't going off to the, what was he supposed to, his third ship he was offered?
Or anyway.
Yeah.
That,
she thought he was on his way out.
I know this is slightly off topic, but like challenging people's sort of religious garb in Starfleet, I thought was kind of fucked up.
That made me so mad, especially with the history of the Bajorans, and especially with Worf walking around with his giant ass sash. Like the sash is okay, but
wasn't he standing right there too?
Is a problem.
Yeah,
that made no sense. That I still hate that whole thing. Like it made me like Riker less, and like it just made Starfleet seem needlessly dickish.
Well, right, so like devil's advocate, did we know the Bajoran history yet in that episode, or was that the first appearance of it?
Starfleet definitely knew it.
Well, I'm saying as far as like
Rose starts like talking about all the oppression and stuff in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would definitely know about
Starfleet would have. I was just wondering when the episode came out if this was like the first introduction of it, because I don't remember if it had been established.
That was like the first. I think it was the first appearance of the Bajorans.
So maybe they wanted to sneak it past us because we didn't know all of their stuff.
No,
yet.
But we learn about it in the episode. That episode, it's like a whole thing. Like they go to like a Bajoran refugee camp and stuff.
Yep.
Like it just makes Riker seem like such a tool. The Doctor would never.
No. Okay. Now, I kind of remember why I wrote this one. Would you want to see a Trek series where the stakes are as high as they've been in Doctor Who? I'm talking about, not just talking about like, I know I wasn't just talking about like saving the entire universe and things even bigger than that, but like, can you imagine Starfleet being spread across the universe? I have enough trouble wrapping my head around the fact that they've barely, touched most of this galaxy.
I think their stakes are already too high, especially in Kurtzman Trek. That's a big problem. They're constantly having to save Federation, save the universe, save whatever. It's way too big. It's much better when it's just the people in front of you or the planet in front of you or whatever. Like Doctor Who can work that way, but I think Star Trek suffers big time when it does that.
What happened to just exploring and misunderstood phenomena and befriending a random alien? Like, come on. agree with that so much. That is my biggest issue with modern Trek, is that it's just way too stakey and serialized, and there's always like the plots are so big and silly that if you like try to explain them to someone who hasn't watched it, you sound like you're like just nuts and reading fan fiction. Like it's not great. It's the worst thing about it. Like all of the best episodes of like Discovery are more of those like one-off episodes where they're kind of like distracted from whatever this season's like main peril is and like just dicking around a little bit. And like in those moments you would like see the show that could have been if they weren't trying so hard to make Trek other sci-fi shows instead of just embracing what's great about Star Trek. Drive me bonkers.
Kind of like Doctor Who, which can handle a season-long story arc way better than any season of Discovery. I will die on that hill.
Well, and like Doctor Who, I think does okay, Doctor Who and Buffy the Vampire Slayer are both absolutely amazing at doing like one-off episodes and Monster of the Weeks while sneakily building to a big bad like overall season arc. They are so like great at planting those little bitty seeds so that you can enjoy each individual episode as you go along. But if you do watch them in order, you get to watch it build to something bigger that like makes sense. It's so good and I love it a lot.
Even when you have like huge stakes, you still have like individual characters that represent those stakes, like the Master that pops up over and over again, like the Cybermen, like the Daleks. Like there's some consistency there, so it's not like they just wipe the slate clean and then just populate it with new bad guys. Or if it is a new bad guy, that it's an iteration, it's like a reincarnation of an old one. So it's like a touchstone.
I don't even remember why the Master's face looks like that.
Yeah, Doctor Who just hits a great balance between like consistency and also like trying new things and taking risks. Like it just does it really well, and I think the way the show is built, like the format of it is just like primed to work really well that way. Whereas I feel like a lot of elements of Star Trek just aren't quite as cohesive if you want to do those like big, just crazy like universe ending plots. Like
Missy right there actually proves it. That whole season, I had no idea. She'd show up at like the end of every episode after somebody died, and just be like, "Oh, I know the doctor. Here, have some tea, whatever." And then it gets to the end of it, and they actually meet her. And then through the end of it's not even until the very end of that episode, she's like, "Well, I couldn't keep calling myself the Master," and I'm just like,
so good. It's so good.
I think when newer Trek or any Trek goes to like universe scale stakes, it's because they're just trying to make filler for not developing characters. Like that's just the mutually exclusive bargain that they're making. Is like
I feel like it's because I feel like they want the characters to be good, but I think they get way too bogged down in what they think will draw a bigger audience. So they're like, well, audiences like action. So they write everything based around these huge, dramatic action set pieces and these big space fights. And the reality is, like, a lot of Star Trek space fights and, like, big action things are, like, silly and lackluster. Like, that's not ever really been, like, the core of, like, what's great about the show. And so they keep focusing on, like, trying to make Star Trek modernize in a way to, like, sell it to more people, and ultimately just like lose out on what's great about it that would appeal to more people in the first place.
And it's not as though like DS9, for example, is not without space battles, but that took a long time to build up to. It wasn't just like every single episode or every single season had one of those.
And that was a payoff for living
exactly
years.
And even then, like the action itself still wasn't like that, like, to me, at least, it wasn't that visually impressive. The reason you like get super invested in Carolot is because you know about all of the people who are like on the ships, on the station, and
half the fight is them just like
to them.
And then rocks fall, and someone gets hit in the head, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
But like you cared about what happened at the station because you were invested in
Yeah.
people that were living in it. It wasn't just like another thing, another big explosion that doesn't mean anything. Like
It's-
even when Roe exploded in that episode,
Oh
it's
my
like
god.
it was like I felt nothing because
I felt
they-
angry.
yeah, that. But I
Mhm.
felt nothing because it was like she just kind of popped in and popped out, and that seemed to be a natural ending. As infuriating as it was like that's inevitably going to happen, even though it doesn't have to. Anyway,
Well, then
Yeah.
after the season, he's like, "Oh, they're all still alive." He's like, "She's still alive. Shelby's still alive. They're
nobody's
all
dead
still
anymore
alive."
in Star Trek. Nobody stays dead.
No,
Yeah. To be fair, they're notorious for not actually wanting to commit to people being dead. They love bringing a dead character back in increasingly nonsensical ways. My favorite really was Tasha Yar. Like they just wanted to bring. They just like, okay, well, we're gonna bring Denise Crosby back somehow. It doesn't need to make sense.
But like the character's still dead though. Like Tasha Yar is
Yeah,
dead.
that's true. She is
Tasha
dead.
But
Prime
like,
is dead, yeah.
but the actress came back.
Yeah.
But like, you know, she jumped ship before like she was aware that it was going to be
Yeah.
successful or anything, and her character wasn't
Mhm.
really doing anything and stuff. But like now, it's like you can't trust a death anymore.
Ah, good.
Yeah,
Code of
that's
honor. We needed code of honor down there.
Yeah.
I thought you did.
It is
Nobody
my
needs code of honor.
my favorite thing is how often throughout TNG they emphasize how like unchanged and immortal Data is, and then they kill him twice and bring him back, and now he's just old for reasons and looks very, very different. I'm like, okay, this is like the one time I would have been like, okay, do the AI thing. Like, what are you doing? Or just don't do it. Like, that makes no sense at all.
Yeah. Moving on. Let's see. Could either series benefit from adopting the nature of the other? Trek's long-serving crews versus whose main character in a rotating list of companions. I was really reaching here.
I mean, I think Doctor Who could do it but not as like the main TARDIS team. Like if they established, like it seems like they're trying to do, like a unit team or something that's consistently there that
I
we
was
get
gonna
to
say
learn
they
about.
did that with Torchwood, right?
Well, that's true, but
Yeah.
they didn't really. Most of the Torchwood team didn't cross over except Jack, except in
Yeah.
that one episode. But if they set up like a unit team we see throughout 5 or 6 years of Doctor Who as like the main people, I think that could work. But
They
not
I
did
the
really
main
hope they
every.
give us a unit spinoff with Catherine Tate. I really want it. I want it. Give it to me, BBC. Just give me what I want.
I mean, there was the Sarah Jane Adventures,
True.
and they tried this thing called, what was it? Class. It's like this private school. I think it's the one Clara actually teaches at. It followed like a group of kids. One of them was like an alien prince, and suddenly the school became like a beacon for alien mischief, according to the Doctor, who showed up long enough to exposition that and then left. But then that show didn't really go anywhere, even though at one point they were like putting together a weeping angel somehow.
I skipped class, so I have no idea what happened there.
I literally didn't know that existed.
Dude, oh my gosh. You need to get rid of that, man. Don't you know the lore? First of all, don't blink. Blink and you're dead. Secondly, anything that holds the image of an angel becomes an angel. Dude!
Ah.
You know what? I'm tired of capitalism. I'm just gonna blink, you guys. Maybe they'll send me back to a pre-capitalist era.
I feel like I have sand in the corner of my eye.
Oh no.
Was that Christina Chong's episode too? Lon crossover?
No, but that is such a good
It
episode.
wasn't okay.
Like I love me some Lon Noonien Singh, but I'm never gonna forget that Christina Chong named River Song.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And speaking of which, is there any relationship in Trek that is comparable to that of the Doctor and River Song?
I would say Picard and Lwaxana Troy.
Interesting.
Because I think like the companion is the human connection. Because the Doctor is Gallifreyan.
Yes.
an alien. And what Troy does is intuit emotions, and I think that's comparable to what the companion does.
I would say
Did we ask which one's better?
Janeway and Seven of Nine kind of embody it a little bit. With like Janeway is like the grizzled, older, person who's kind of seen it and been through the ringer, whereas Seven is like seeing all of this with fresh eyes and discovering her individuality and identity. And so I feel like it kind of mirrors the like journey of self-discovery that the companion and the Doctor often kind of go on together, because Janeway also kind of like seems to like learn about herself and process things like through her interactions with Seven. But I am absolutely reaching here.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, is there anything comparable to the amount of just unabashed flirting in the face of danger?
Garrick and Bashir.
Oh.
Okay.
I do think he asked Bashir if he wanted to see his TARDIS once, so that does seem comparable. There you go.
Is it bigger on the inside?
Ship it.
Yes. John Barrowman asked a girl that at the con I was at a couple weeks ago.
Whoa.
Oh, John Barrowman's such a creep in real life.
He had a
It's
TARDIS
very
dressed on, so he's like, I've been inside you. And it is bigger
He's
on
like,
the inside.
yeah, he's
Ooh.
someone who's gotten in trouble with HR for like putting his dick on people's shoulders on set. Like, I hate it a lot. He's the worst. He's just a, and he's like non-apologies about it are even worse. Like, he just sucks. I'm glad we get Rogue now. I hope he just like completely subsumes like Captain Jack as hot boy kissing the Doctor icon.
Hope he comes back.
I definitely think he's coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, he has to. There's no way in hell they would do that to us, where he says, find me, and then the Doctor doesn't.
So.
There we go.
Yay.
These pictures are killing it.
Oh,
What was
Awesome.
what was your question? Doctor and River Song?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing that popped into my head ever so briefly is Q and Vash could have been a similar relationship.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I forgot your question and thought it was Doctor Companion, so my answer makes no sense.
Same. Sorry.
So I have a list I'm looking at over here. I'm like, wait a minute, River Song.
One thing I do appreciate about Star Trek is, despite how horny it is, it does a good job being not very romance-focused for the most part.
Oh, so should Doctor Who add a decon chamber? Is that what we're trying to get to?
Well, if we're talking like flirty relationships through time, then Picard and Q.
Oh, 100%.
Hard.
Just kiss already.
I mean, he was like in the bed with him at Starfleet Academy. So
That's true.
awkward.
Although he was also in the tub and the bed with Janeway, so.
Oh yeah.
Listen, Q is undoubtedly a pansexual icon. Like,
Q and Captain
Yeah,
Jack
I
at
ship
a
it.
time.
I also like Lady Q.
Q and Captain
would
Jack
have
would
been
have
nice to see more
had a
of
time.
her.
And Q would have been
I
like,
also
"Oh,
like
you're a
Q's
face now.
son.
Even better."
I would like to see more of Q's son.
Yes.
Oh, you mean Q?
Yeah, Q.
Yes.
Q, the son of Q and Q.
Too.
Although he's like not acting anymore, so I don't know if he'd come back for.
Well, actually,
he's like
probably
a
good for him,
he's like a
but-
relief. He's overseas doing like relief law or something for
Oh,
yeah.
refugees or something.
That's amazing. Good for him.
yeah.
Well, when he was acting, he was really good in that episode, and they found someone who like marvelously resembles John Delancey.
Well, that's because it's half of his DNA.
Wait, really?
It's his real
That's his
son.
son. Yeah.
That's his son.
Oh, whoa! Now I feel silly. I feel like I knew that but forgot.
Yeah.
Well, good job, them.
Tom Paris and Harry Kim.
I don't know, for whatever reason, as soon as you said that, I had "Ooh, what you say" pop into my head.
All right, I could continue geeking out about this, but it's been a while. So the last thing I get here is upcoming topics for October. And Dustin, I'm not entirely sure on that, even though you did show us a timeline the other day.
So next week we're going to be talking the City on the Edge of Forever,
That's right.
TOS. The week after, we're going to do a Best in Show episode, which is going to be like Best Captain, Best Engineer,
Ooh.
Best First
Oh.
Officer.
So it's not a mockumentary about dogs. Okay.
Best captain's
Unfortunately
pet.
not.
Ooh.
The week
gotta
after,
wear a
we're going to
kimono.
get into the pseudo Halloween episodes in Star Trek, and then we are into Lower Decks on the 24th, 28th, because it premieres the 24th. Lower Decks. Fuck yeah.
All right.
All right.
Oh, I forgot this is metal.
Sounds like you guys had a great talk. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
Oh, it doesn't stick.
I remembered another similarity that I don't think we covered, which is that both shows love to introduce an alien that's causing a problem and then have the doctor and or the crew in Star Trek like find out that the alien is just misunderstood and then usually befriend the alien. And I think that's incredibly cute. And I wish there was more sci-fi, a lot more sci-fi with those general themes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Aliens are friends.
Not food.
Unless it's Kelpian.
Oh my gosh.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, Scott, thank you for running this. It looks
gosh,
like you guys
anytime.
had an awful lot of fun. I've never seen an episode of The Who.
You need to
At
start.
some point, I would like to. A lot to catch up on. But if I can get through all of Star Trek twice in 2 years, I can get through Doctor Who at some point. All right.
Indeed.
Well, hey, thanks for everybody that joined Scott today and all of you for watching. Until next week, live long